It is the year of the Kraken. Our heroes return from the frosty winter to the sea. Have a game under the warmth of the Hearthstone. StarLadder I-League StarSeries Finals. Having slain countless opponents to reach this point, Chinese players Xi Shuai and Izoro shall join the masters of the game Shixo, Naiman, Hoi, Java, DrHippi, Stansiska in Shanghai for a shot at taking the throne. From the highest-ranking ladder players to the hidden dark horses, who shall reign supreme? Conquer 4, 5, ban 1, double elimination. Will the champion once again remain in China, or shall a new victor emerge? July 8th to the 10th. Start from 10 a.m. Shanghai, China. Come and witness the tournament of the century.
Alright, welcome back everyone to StarLadder and I-League StarSeries Season 2. I'm Noxious, joined by Firebat for the last match of the day. Deciding as well in Group B who's going to be moving on for the top 4 tomorrow. Where we have the semis and finals, which is it's going to be pretty intense today. I think we had a great day overall. The series were good. And DrHippi will be fighting off against Izoro, the Chinese player. So this time around, we have one Chinese player from Group A that moved on, and there's a chance for a second one representing China also going forward.
That would be both of the Chinese players making it then, because there's only 2 Chinese players here, and if both make it, that says a lot of very positive things about the Chinese region in general.
Yeah, and the Chinese player won the prior, or at least the last StarLadder and I-League Star Series Season 1, so China's been doing very well in these tournaments. DrHippi from Victus Pro, and we also have the same team for DrHippi. Could also maybe get 2 people from the same team on that top 4. Could be pretty sick.
Yeah, so either way, it's going to be a pretty memorable finish for the end of the day, for sure.
Absolutely.
We either have 2 players from Victus Pro making it, or we have 2 players from the Chinese region making it. Either way, there's a double of something.
Yeah, what I like, though, about this last match, by the way, for the day, is that they're both playing a Freeze Mage.
You like that?
I like that because they're kind of different, actually.
They are different.
They're not the same exact build, and for all this the talk about Freeze Mage being awful, these 2 players have been kind of doing okay with it. It's not the deck that left them behind whenever they play them. So I'm more interested to see, however, what the bans end up being. Probably the Warriors, given the fact that they're both playing Mage. I feel like that would be kind of...
Hippie doesn't even have a warrior.
Yeah.
So I imagine it's going to be Hippie's Shaman being banned, and then Zoro's warrior will probably be banned.
Yep.
But no, it's Hippie's Hunter being banned.
Okay, the hybrid Hunter.
That is really strange. I'm very curious about that ban choice, as, you know, Zoro has Rogue even in his lineup.
Yeah, I feel like that's one of the good matchups to face off against.
One of the only good matchups for his Rogue deck in the entire lineup, and he banned it out. So I'm very puzzled. If Hippie's able to win with the Zoo, it's going to be really hard for Zoro to get a win with this Rogue, assuming that Hippie is playing Face Shaman.
Yeah, assuming that's the Face Shaman list, which Hippie actually does bring. So, it's one of those situations where, the Shaman almost always gets a win. The Freeze Mage usually loses to it. The Druid's going to have, like an uphill battle. It's actually okay in some cases, but usually you just get blown out like 70-30 by the Shaman. And the mirror match is going to come down to who gets the totem golem.
I'm going to go out already and say that there's no way Hunter is the correct ban in this scenario. I'm looking at the deck lists in front of me right now. And I've played a lot of Hearthstone, and I cannot advise the Hunter ban being correct here. I think that's, by far, it's one of Hippie's strangest decks. It's got like Knife Jugglers in it, and like a Direwolf Alpha and Argent Squires, and a random tracking.
It's a hybrid. It's like a 2 deer. Like, it's not even going full hybrid with more aggression.
2 strength. Like, it's a very crazy deck list to begin with.
Right.
And Zoro's decks line up pretty well against it.
I'm surprised by that ban by Zoro. I think it's just the unexpected dark horse in this tournament of the century.
Great.
Nobody expected this list, so maybe it's going to be able to get... actually, it definitely put Izoro off balance. I mean, he had no idea what to expect from it. So, no practice, no certainty. You just ban it.
I guess that's what you do.
Yeah.
And all right, well, Zoro's off to
bad start.
I mean, bad start in the matchup-wise for sure, yeah.
Right.
But speaking of the hand-wise, though, his hand's off to a great start. So there's potential here for things to happen. Hippie does not have the strongest hand in the world.
I'm going to stop you right there. 4 minutes, 7-7.
It's decent, but it is going to get frozen a lot and probably not accomplish too much. He also has Things from Below, which is another just minion in the not really going to be doing too much here. And we may even see just the Doomsayer come out here from Zoro after seeing, such a weak turn from Hippie just to stall. But he is going to be a little greedier with it. Go with the Loot Hoarder. Maybe save the Doomsayer for the Frost Nova Doom. Oftentimes, the issue with that is when you go for Frost Nova Doom, you're playing against a deck that is all damage.
Right.
Damage, in turn, is also removal. So they usually have a pretty
easier time
anyway, cleaning up Doomsayers. So let's see how it pays off for Zoro. It's somewhat of a risk, I guess. But it would have killed his own images to play the Doomsayer there, so it does kind of remove some of your defenses if you do it. So
yeah,
I can get behind it, I guess.
I think the reasoning behind that play is simply that he's got the double Nova, so he's able to stagger the freeze and guarantee the Doomsayer goes off more likely than not, because if he didn't have the second Nova, then suddenly you're never getting turn 5. To get the Doomsayer to trigger. Whereas in this case, it's possible it can happen. If I see a coin Doomsayer here, I will be absolutely...
he's saving it for the combo, for sure. It's going to work out for him, too, at this rate. Hippie does not have great ways to interact with the Frost Nova Doomsayer as of yet. He's probably going to want to just, Flame Tongue here, push a bunch of damage, not overload himself, so he can make sure to get that Doom Hammer out the following turn.
Do you ever just go for... not extending on this board any more than you already had, because the coin was kept for Izoro, which could indicate that he's trying to get that turn 4.
I don't know. You push a lot of damage. You just
seems
good. You can't always guarantee the Flame Tongue Totem is going to deal any damage. So when you can get the spots where it's going to do damage, I think you take it. So I like putting it here in the middle, using 2 damage to get through the mirror image, and then all the rest goes face every time.
There's one trait here that's made to protect a wolf in the event that there is no AoE clear, so suddenly the 2-1 and the 1-1 together don't clear.
That's reasonable for sure.
Sure.
I'm a more Smork-oriented player. I would have just domed him in the face, but I can get behind it.
That's good too.
And now we see the Frost Nova Doomsayer here every time, right?
Yeah, so one of the things this does by playing it, because he had the opportunity of being even greedier and waiting even longer. The issue with that is suddenly, Doomhammer plus Lightning Bolt ends up killing your Doomsayer if you wait one more turn, because he gets the extra mana to do it. Whereas in this case, there's no real way this Doomsayer dies unless he pushes like a Lava Burst with Bolt or something ridiculous.
Which would honestly be almost like a waste of damage for Dr. Hippie.
And he'd be happy.
He has the perfect answer to Frost Nova Doomsayer in the sense of just Doom Hammering face. And he's usually Frost Nova Doomsayer forces your opponent to waste their turn, and Doom Hammering face is not a waste of a turn for Face Shaman.
Yeah, and this deck from Izoro also is aiming to keep these Ice Lances for burst. There's really no way for him to get around to wasting them, since he will need that very limited amount of damage to push with the combo plays he's got. However, it's looking very grim here. If he ever wants to freeze face, Ice Lances are gone, and if he ever wants to freeze the board, that slows him down. No Ice Block set up yet. Yeah, looking good for Hippie.
A pretty good turn to, either play a 4-mana 7/7, or, go for Finley and look for a hero power to deal a little bit more damage here, which I think is the route I prefer. I feel like everything you play into the board is most likely to get frozen at this stage of the game.
Repeatedly, yeah.
But, forcing your opponent to use the mana to freeze is also a pretty fair argument to make sure that, you just have something out there so they have to freeze. But I'm in the camp where I like going face. I'm going to get that Finley out there, look for either the Hunter or the Druid hero power. And I would also even just Rockbiter the face this turn, just to prevent yourself from being frozen in the future. And then you can just hero power your opponent down slowly and set up lethal with things like Lava Burst and what have you.
Which is why, there's 3 hero powers in this spot that are great. You can reach your burn through life tap. You can just get extra damage on your Rockbiter with the Druid hero power. So really, I don't think there's a good argument for ever waiting at this point. You want to force the mage to juggle his mana and his card draw to get to the ice block while still trying to kill you, which is at 6 mana. Starting right now, Izoro never really finds the time to do either of these things.
Yeah, and if Izoro doesn't actually freeze this Finley or freeze the face,
or both,
he's dead on board.
Yeah.
So he's got to take a very defensive line here.
Looks like he's going to go for the
Ice
Lance works out pretty well right now, but, it's a stall. It's not quite getting the ice block set up. It's not protective enough.
Tuskar Totemic here, hit Flame Tongue Totem, Abusive Sergeant, hero power.
Win the game.
Win the game.
Yeah.
I think you take it every time.
It's like a 15%, something along those lines. 1 in 7, I think.
1 in 7, yeah. And then you also get Mana Tide sometimes, which gets you an extra card, which isn't too bad.
Yeah, occasionally you get nothing. But
I mean, really, the 3/2 body is never going to do anything ever, so if it could lethal your opponent, I think you just go for it.
I mean, you can still win next turn off just the hero power if there's no ice block, but you're kind of just extending the game a little bit longer. It doesn't have. I mean, it's probably not a problem.
I don't think it's bad either way. I just personally don't feel like the Tuskar Totemic's ever going to accomplish more than 1 in 7 chance to end the game right there.
Yeah,
like is reasonably going to get frozen every turn and not be too huge of an impact on the game, but you win pretty much regardless if you play it or not.
Yeah, you might as well just have closed your eyes and waited to be unfrozen. 7 turns from now with your Doomhammer, eventually you'll find a turn to swing in without even hitting hero power. You don't even have to.
Yeah, and that's kind of the way we expect that matchup to go. We've seen that matchup like 3 or 4 times between yesterday and today, and it's always ended in favor of the Shaman. It's a pretty one-sided matchup. It's not as one-sided as it seems here today, I don't think, but it's generally speaking pretty one-sided in favor of the
aggro Shaman. Yeah, I mean, we saw the mid-range Shaman from Hoy just. I feel like falling short of what he wanted it to do, whereas the aggro Shaman can get a lot better matchups. And this is one of those matchups where mid-range Shaman's okay.
Well, mid-range Shaman's much scarier, is more scared of Freeze Mage.
Exactly, I'm more scared of Freeze Mage, where you'll find that the aggro Shaman finds consistency there. So, honestly, the aggro Shaman has been dominating every single time they were let through in this tournament. We had a few performances, I think, yesterday where they had a little bit of trouble against some of the more controlly decks. But for the most part, you don't expect to lose against a Freeze Mage ever.
Yeah, you really don't. It's generally speaking a pretty consistent matchup. So DrHippi off to a quick 1-0 lead here. Now looking at the rest of his decks, he's still got his Zoo, he's still got his own Freeze Mage, and he's got the Yogg Druid remaining. The Yogg Druid
ready, yeah. It's looking like a standard lineup aside from the Freeze Mage left. That Freeze Mage could also be a bit of an issue, but it's also got the Rogue to face off against, which thank you.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where Izoro just has the Rogue, banned the Hunter of all the classes left in DrHippi's lineup, which if that Rogue ends up getting roadblocked by the Freeze Mage, then that's pretty much.
That's one of the more one-sided matchups in all of Hearthstone.
At this point, which is interesting because it seems like Freeze Mage just finds so many of those I get countered by this matchup. They get countered by Warriors just about across the board. They have trouble against Shaman if it's of the aggro variety, which it very often is. So very touchy there.
We hit the Freeze Mage mirror.
Love that one.
So this is a pretty complicated matchup, but one of the biggest advantages in it is having, the key cards. The key cards being Emperor Thorson, Alex Straza.
Yep.
Those sort of things are super important. So we're going to see both players, hold them off the mulligan here. Just the most influential cards in the entire match are those. And with the Torch versions of Freeze Mage, a lot of players, prioritize just dealing a lot of face damage really quickly, and
I think Izoro might actually get this entire burst to come down a lot earlier before then Alex Straza comes out, right? He just needs to find a card draw to make that work.
He doesn't have any card draw right now, so I much prefer Hippie's hand, honestly. Hippie doesn't have the Emperor, but he has, Tubble, Novice Engineer, Acolyte of Pain, so just much more fuel in the tank for things to do, cards to cycle, but theoretically, Izoro can win the game without any cycle. What if he picks up Frostbolt, Ice Lance, Fireball, and then Emperors all of that with the Evolved Kobold and just kills Hippie?
Yeah, I think that's kind of what you're hoping is going to happen is Izoro, but the amount of burn in DrHippi's hand is massing up to an absurd amount.
He's not going to attack here with the Novice Engineer. He doesn't want it to be Ice Barrier. If it's Ice Barrier, your opponent's going to gain 7 additional armor, basically, so it's almost never worth taking the risk there because the downside is so bad, and the upside is 1 damage, which isn't too impactful when you have Alex Straza in your hand.
Yeah, doesn't matter all that much. Izoro, he does have Cone of Cold. In this case, awful. He does want to be using the Frostbolt to kill the Acolyte, because then that's a lot of burn he's losing out of his hand. I'm not sure that's...
I don't think you ever Frostbolt the Acolyte there.
Agreed. I think it's actually a clear loss of your game. You don't have any card draw. That's all the fuel you've got.
Yeah.
If Kobold's already there, you've got the Emperor. The pieces are coming together, so...
If your opponent wants to spend all of their, half of their mana every turn, pinging the Acolyte, I think that's fine by you. You're just giving up so much potential reach going with your Evolved Kobold and what have you, and now this Ice Lance is kind of stranded unless you find exactly the other Frostbolt, so...
Right.
I think...
Rough. I think he didn't hesitate too much either. It feels like...
he's limiting card draw from Hippie, potentially, but...
He's already got a big hand.
Yeah, he's already drawn so much. It's very likely he hits other card draw by this point. And, if he has other card draw to go with it, then those card draw cards would become dead in his hand if he pings the Acolyte.
One of the big things maybe that this does is it makes the Cone of Cold live, but it's not by much.
I don't think you care about Cone of Cold being live.
Yeah.
No, It's unfortunate that Izoro doesn't have any cycle in his hand currently.
Oh, God. The Frostbolt number 2 gets picked up.
I really hope he does not use that on the Acolyte, completely stranding the Ice
There's
Lance.
no way. There is no way.
Imagine if he had held the Frostbolt, though. He would have much more burn going into the Evolved Kobold later on after the Emperor.
There's no way he's using Frostbolt here. If he does, he just lost the game on his own.
Yeah.
There's no way he can actually ever kill his opponent. He'd have to get exactly Forgotten Torch into Forgotten Torch into Roaring Torch into Roaring Torch into Fireball. All of that with Emperor Thorsten triggering without dying by the time that happens. And even then...
It's a really questionable line of play to kill the Acolyte. I thought the first one was questionable, but the second one is definitely more questionable. Izoro agrees. He's not going to invest into the second Acolyte.
I'm happy to see that at least. He's keeping one of the burn pieces that he definitely needs to have to win the match. Well, DrHippi's got a lot of burn. Not all of it, but all he's got to do is, find the ice block before disasters come up. Because this is he's got 2 dead cards in hand, being the Blizzards and the Flame Strike. Even a 3rd card means that he might just have to play them on curve to empty the hand if he doesn't find secrets.
Nope, that's a good card to use to empty your hand.
Definitely. It helps you find even more fireballs later on. So
let's get Fireball in. I think you just launch the torch at the face, cycle another Fireball into your deck.
Yeah.
Seems reasonable to me.
I think at this point he's also thinking, is there ever Ice Barrier in that list? Like, do I maybe squeeze in the extra 3 damage? Because that way maybe I don't rely on Alexstrasza to win. I can just get the Ice
start
Lance.
Accumulating pretty close to finding lethal there. You look at DrHippi's hand. He's sitting there with 18 in his hand, so
yeah,
not totally unreasonable. Izoro picks up one of the super key cards here for him. Alexstrasza. Imagine he has a 2nd Frostbolt in his hand now. Plays Emperor Thorsten, gets the discounted on
16 damage. That's
16 damage after the Alexstrasza. Now instead, though, without that 2nd Frostbolt, he's sitting at 5 plus.
Yeah, he's got the total
5 plus 6. He's only got 11 now.
Yeah, he's actually
16.
4 off.
So he's 4 off lethal after the Alexstrasza into Evolved Kobold Frostbolt Ice Lance. So he's relying on now a top deck. Whereas if he had, forgone the Frostbolt on the Acolyte, maybe DrHippi gets 1 or 2 extra cards, but Izoro actually has a win condition in his hand.
Yeah. Well, we'll see exactly how that pans out. It's been, I feel like this kind of matchup is one that you have to play a ton to actually navigate very well.
Oh, yeah, and it's very hard to play a ton of this matchup because you never encounter it on ladder. Almost ever. And we see DrHippi, instead of using the Fireball here, he gets rid of his useless minions and uses the Blizzard. I really like this play.
Yep.
His minions were just sitting there waiting to die to a board clear because he can't attack face out of fear of Ice Block. I mean, Ice Barrier, sorry, not Ice Block. And he doesn't want to waste the crucial burn, especially since there's no Pyroblast in his list. So.
And it looks like Izoro does pick up a Fireball to go with the burn he's got. So quite frankly, he is actually favored to win this.
Yeah.
Assuming DrHippi doesn't find an Ice Block of this Arcane Intellect. I mean, this has to be...
Well, he's got to dump a card first before he can even play the Arcane Intellect.
Let's go Doomsayer. Why not?
Yeah, Doomsayer, and then he has to play another card after the fact as well. So then he's going to have to commit like a Frostbolt to the face or something, or unless he picks up another card to play. He's got some hand size issues going on here for sure.
Yeah, I mean, once you throw away the Frostbolt, it's no issue because Alexstrasza, doesn't require it to work. So it's no real big issue. Wow.
All right, he's got 22 damage in the hand. If he connects Spell Power with some of that, it could end up being quite nicely.
Yeah, but I mean, Izoro's got the Alexstrasza right now, which does die to Doomsayer, but you're setting up a lethal right away.
Yeah, that's one of the things I really like about DrHippi getting the Doomsayer out this turn. Not sure if he's doing it intentionally or just doing it because his hand's full and he needs to get rid of it.
It's a mix of both.
But, after an Emperor proc has been down, Alexstrasza costs 8 mana. So if your opponent has it in their hand, now it's going to die. You get rid of the 8/8, so you don't have to spend mana freezing the 8/8. Izoro, though, I feel like he does not care about the 8/8 body. I think he should go in, set up lethal with Alexstrasza. If your opponent doesn't have Ice Block, they lose. I think that's a really solid line of play.
Yeah, I really, really hope Izoro does not hesitate too much on this decision. It's one of the simplest lethals you're ever going to find in this game. Doesn't force you to navigate around a billion Ice Blocks.
And does he find the Ice Block?
Not yet.
No, but he finds the Arcane Intellect with 10 cards in hand. If he plays Arcane Intellect, he will mill 1 card, so he's got to drop something out of his hand before he can do so.
He could play Blood Mage Thalnos into Arcane and then pick up the Ice Block. I mean, it does empty up the hand a little bit, and you have like 2 slots to maybe get it done. You have the mana to do it too, so. There's also the Frostbolt to face, where why not? You got a Roaring Torch left in the deck, and Blood Mage Thalnos with double Fireball does put your opponent on 1, so it's like you stagger your kills quite a bit, but you need to find that Ice Block. You don't do it. You think you're dead. Alexstrasza came out on the Doomsayer turn.
The definite plan for victory here, just judging by the size of Izoro's hand, if he's going to kill you from 15, which seems pretty likely when he's playing Alexstrasza into a Doomsayer. If he's going to do that, then he's probably not going to have the burn to finish if you Alexstrasza yourself back up after the fact. So finding the Ice Block is a solid out, but instead DrHippi is just going to be trying to set up his own lethal here. How much damage does he have in his hand? He's got the Fireball for 6, Frostbolt for 3, and then Ice Lance for 4.
Plus the ping.
He's relying on a top deck potentially to set up lethal, so doesn't have his own lethal set up with this play, and Izoro did have a lethal set up, so this is going to be a match win for Izoro.
Okay, so, I mean, on the back of a Frostbolt and Acolyte of Pain, he does find the win. Maybe that draw would have been the Ice Block. Who knows? But I still
don't like that play. I feel like he got kind of fortunate to find the fourth burn spell there. Yeah. If he's unable to find the fourth burn spell there, then
game's done.
He doesn't have the win behind this. Now he's stuck with no card draw in his hand, just hoping. So
could pick up more draw, but again, it's really unlikely. I think the Frostbolt play was kind of questionable.
Yeah, I think just when you have a win condition in your hand, might as well keep it. And you're playing against Freeze Mage, the whole deck's card draw.
Yeah, and if you pop the block first, usually win first.
Yeah, so giving up the crucial amount of burn, especially without Pyroblast in your deck, stuff like that. If they Alex themselves back up after you pop them the first time, and now you're down burn because you kind of wasted it on removal, you run into situations where you just don't have enough damage in your deck after they heal up with Alexstrasza. It can get awkward. So it ends up working out for him, though. He does have the tech in his deck with the Evolved Coldblood, which kind of helps out in that matchup a little bit.
I think it actually favors him in the matchup every often just because of that.
It's another burn spell, basically, right?
Yep.
So he just has, like, extra burn in his deck, and it's pretty good to have extra burn in your deck when both decks' game plan doesn't interact with each other at all. They're just trying to find burn and burn the other guy. That's the whole plan, right?
And they end up playing really awkward turns where they just blizzard an empty board to fill
the
up.
guy that has more burn is generally favored when both players play no defenses and burn each other in the face. So,
all right. I think the admins
Izoro getting Freeze Mage out of the way.
Yep.
That's pretty good for him.
That's insane for him,
Yeah,
actually.
DrHippi may struggle to get his own Freeze Mage out of the woods here.
But he's got a Rogue to
face
off against.
Rogue.
Easy life. Easy win, easy life.
Never mind.
But the Rogue could line up against something else like Zoo, where suddenly the matchup isn't as bad.
So Izoro still has to get this Rogue out. If he gets the Rogue out, I'd say he's favored in the series. But
I think DrHippi is going to queue the Freeze Mage until the end of time.
Until the end of time?
Just to make sure the Rogue.
Just to make sure he can get that Rogue.
But, I mean, at the same time, that does mean that you have to go up against the Rogue with the Zoo. And then suddenly, maybe that's not something you really want to be doing as much. It's awkward.
It's definitely hard to figure out the best way to queue these decks. There's no, best way, really. You just try not to be predictable.
Druid versus the Rogue. That's a... let's flip a coin.
That is a really close matchup.
Let's flip a coin, baby.
It's a really good hand for Rogue. He's already got Tomb Pillager, and having Prep isn't too bad, especially in conjunction with Sap against Druid, because of the Innervate hands. Just being able to, play a minion and then Prep Sap is usually pretty strong. And Gadget's drawn with the Tomb Pillager.
But he's not on the coin, so that's a little bit worse. But then again, it's still really good.
I still like being Rogue. With the way these hands spread out, I would prefer to be the Rogue for sure. And now we can see how deep is DrHippi going to go with this turn. Because he has the ability to turn one Violet Teacher if he really wants to, be as aggressive as possible. If the Rogue player doesn't have Sap, he's off to a great start and probably just wins the game on the back of it. But we know there is a Sap. He's going to be a little bit more passive and wait to maybe get some insured Violet Teacher off and not make himself vulnerable to those sort of things.
Yeah, I mean, you do also force the Rogue to break up her dagger early on, such that, if they ever want to go for some kind of backstab, deadly poison play when you start playing that Violet Teacher, it's a little bit more awkward. So
now do you go for the Violet Teacher? He doesn't have follow-up to it, really.
I'm tempted to go for it.
You can make a lot of tokens. It's pretty weak to fan.
Well, Raven Idol also gives you the follow-up, right? And if you can, get the Phantom Knives out of the way and he goes for Prep Abyss, that empties his hand tremendously, and then suddenly the Auctioneer is not as threatening.
Makes a lot of
sense. But
the
spell does need to give you decent follow-up. To make this play really solid,
for sure,
you need to find a good 3-cost spell at the very least. Or another Innervate, who knows. Yeah, I'll pick that up.
Raven Idol or Swipe?
Honestly, in this matchup, Swipe on turn 4 kills the Tomb Pillager. I don't dislike it too much. I like
not
that.
Too bad.
It's very safe. By the way, no Phantom Knife, so the punish is not quite there for him just yet.
No, he's going to be kind of forced just to Sap here. Sap on the Violet Teacher, and then looks like he's just daggering down a tree and passing, which is not a very strong turn whatsoever.
When do you re-dagger? This is one of the awkward spots that Deadly Poison suddenly just feels like a miserable card to have in your deck. Because absolutely that you eventually have to lose a ton of tempo just re-daggering up.
for sure, yeah. I don't think he's redirecting anytime soon. I think he's going Tomb
turn
Pillager
7,
into
maybe
Azure
turn
Drake.
7, yeah. Turn 7 dagger out. That's about it.
Yeah. It's an easy Tomb Pillager into Azure Drake into Auctioneer, Coin Conceal, prep the world.
Yeah. Here, that's a pretty good play.
Oh, it's a pretty great play for sure.
All right.
As
might not
Hippie
swipe
here,
then. Might not swipe with the Wrath.
Yeah, you could use Wrath to clear if you really wanted to. You could use Swipe to clear. You could develop the Violet Teacher in the hopes that the Tomb Pillager trades into the Violet Teacher.
Sets up a swipe.
It sets up a swipe from the following turn, because if Azure Drake plays out after that, then the swipe's just beautifully clean. But
yeah,
he's going to take the more proactive line and just swipe it. I wouldn't have hated either way.
Yeah, if Izoro picks up a Conceal off the top there's definitely an argument for just playing the Gadget Sand and prepping the Conceal, but again, more zero-cost spell. This is a nightmare.
I never like prepping the Conceal. It's like you can get so much more value out of prepping one of the bigger spells like Shadow Strike, Fan of Knives, Sap, Chib, anything other than Conceal. Like Conceal is just like the minimum possible value you can get out for prep. So especially when you have a play-to-play other than the Gadgetson, exactly. I always like just going with that play.
Yeah, in this spot though, the Druid would have literally nothing to do. It's so awkward for DrHippi. I mean, that sap set him back so far.
Yeah, he's prioritizing killing the Drake rather than developing his own Drake, just because Drakes from the Rogue side are just so powerful. It's so scary to leave that spell power active.
And the body for Cold Blood as well. It's a lot of damage coming in that you really can't deny. Plus, you want to play Emperor uncontested, hopefully, in the following turn.
Oh my gosh, Gadget, Coin, Conceal. There you go. And then he can even cycle a backstab if he wants, or you can hold on to it. I think you do cycle the backstab, and I don't think you prep anything, unless he picks up Fan.
Yeah, and I think just cycling backstab overall is just a good thing to do.
Yeah, I think you hold on to the prep here. You can use it next turn to actually, remove some more priority threat rather than just, eviscerating him in the face or something silly.
Yeah, so Emperor Thorson here does give you more flexibility, which is good. Just having cheaper spells to play the Drake as well is going to line up a little bit better with something like Swipe later on if you're going to play it on turn 8. As the only Swipe that's been played so far was acquired from Raven Idol, so there's still 2 of them in the deck. And
okay.
A lot could matter here. A little bit difficult, though, for DrHippi to see a way out of this with a Stealthed Auctioneer. I mean, even if you do get the cards you're looking for, it might just be a bit late.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a pretty tough call here. The 2 plays that jump out to me are like Violet Teacher, Power of the Wild, or Emperor Thorson. And
I mean, okay, so here's
the reason why I like Violet Teacher, Power of the Wild a little bit is because it's kind of annoying to remove.
And they've
already seen the backstab, so like the backstab eviscerates the natural way to remove that, and like Shadow Strike doesn't immediately kill it, so that's why that jumps out to me more than the Emperor. And the Emperor discount doesn't really benefit you that much for the following turn.
You need like 2 spells or so, or even a Fandral plus something else.
That's why I like this line of play, and DrHippi identifies it as well. It's just more sticky minions in the field, a little bit more awkward for Izoro to figure out this puzzle of how to clear this. But if I'm Izoro here, I would start with Prep Eviscerate on the 4/6. You got SIs if nothing works out, or you can potentially hit second backstab for one of the 2/2s, or you could potentially hit a Spell Power Fan of Knives.
There's 2 Conceals in the deck, so if he goes for this line of play, I mean, there's definitely a good chance that you can just get everything stealthed up with 1 Cold Blood on top, which means you get recurring damage output going forward, but it's also less.
It's definitely less flexible to start by playing a 4-mana minion, for sure.
Exactly. It's a lot less flexible to open with a 4-mana minion in this turn.
Yeah.
Because you are looking for specific cards off the top, which you may not get. And in this case, that's kind of what's happening. The Conceal didn't hit, so suddenly Swipe is looking pretty gorgeous for DrHippi if he finds it.
Yeah. Yeah, I was not a fan of the way that Gadgetson turn worked out. And he didn't even cycle that many cards, honestly.
Yeah,
he could have, continued playing spells further instead of that 4-mana minion. He would have been able to play like double Cold Blood that turn and then prep something else, and then kept playing with the cards.
It's really down to the Conceal hope, I think. That's kind of what he was banking on.
It is
if he had a Sap in hand, that play was absolutely perfect. Because you still get, good follow-up to remove any minion that comes down. In this case, though, you're going to be forced to trade away your board, which is okay. But I mean, the Swipe came down and you were pretty wrecked.
Pretty wrecked.
You got pretty wrecked in here.
Yeah, one of the key things with Rogue is cycling cards, though. So trying to prioritize cycle, I feel like, is pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, again, DrHippi does not have a really good follow-up or response to this still, despite everything that transpired.
He's losing a 1/1 here. He should have traded in a 1/1 first.
Yeah.
I guess
it deals 10 damage. It doesn't matter too much because he gets it back right away.
I didn't realize he was eviscerating it. Okay.
Yeah, he's not trading minions. He wants to just get everything down.
He wants to prioritize the face damage for sure.
Let's swipe.
Not too bad. Yeah, that worked out pretty well for Izoro there, just being able to cut through that. He's so far ahead on board. There's like no way he loses this game. It's just all came down to that Tomb Pillager into Gadgets and Coin Conceal. Those are one of those rogue hands that you just can't beat, really. And that's why people played rogue originally. But the problem is you don't get those hands very often.
Yeah, I think one of the big things too is that the sap on Violet Teacher that got played.
Oh yeah,
like that one turn I think mattered too much because there was no point where any ramp came up. Like even one Wild Growth should have accelerated him, even if a bit off curve, to get those 6 and 7 drops.
Yeah. If there was no answer to the Violet Teacher, then Hippie had the game for sure. He would have just snowballed out of control. But there was an answer for the Violet Teacher. Zoro had the sap. He's able to get a win out with the Rogue. So now suddenly, I think Zoro's favored in the series.
Yeah.
It's going to be very difficult for Dr. Hippie to get a win with the Freeze Mage.
That was rough, man. Those two games were rough for Dr. Hippie.
They were brutal. Now he has to win against, either the Druid or the Shaman. And it's a face Shaman from Zoro, so it's going to be tough for Dr. Hippie to pull that one out.
I mean, the Freeze Mage is already going to lose to that. So Zoo's actually the best deck you've got to line up against the Shaman. So you can maybe farm it with that a little bit better. But even then, it's one of those matchups that just sometimes goes out of your hands. Totem Golem comes out, you're done.
Sometimes it goes south quick. It's just...
Healing Totem is a really
feel
big
like
deal.
Hippie will get a win with the Zoo. If he queues up Zoo against either of these decks, he'll get the win there.
Usually,
he'll start clawing back his way into the series. I expect him to take that route. I expect him to queue up the Zoo first. Take the slow approach, get his expected wins, and then eventually queue up the Freeze Mage last.
That's kind of depressing.
After he's tied up the series.
It's kind of depressing from Dr. Hippie's perspective because that Mage looked like it was going to do fine.
It looked like it was going to get a free win in this series, right? It just had decent matchups to take it against.
Suddenly the Hunter ban, man. Suddenly the Hunter ban.
I still don't agree with the Hunter ban.
Yeah, but I mean, suddenly the Hunter ban is just one of those things you wish hadn't happened. But if you're Dr. Hippie, you were happy with it initially.
Well,
you're like, sure.
If the Hunter wasn't banned, then it was going to be Shaman.
Sure.
And if Shaman's banned, I think Dr. Hippie's more sad than Hunter being banned.
Yeah. I mean, Dr. Hippie. It's an uphill battle, but 2 elite is not something you can't recover from ever. There's also the chance that the opponent also isn't too comfortable with the matchups necessarily. Maybe gets a bit too greedy or trade heavy in some of those, so they end up giving you the advantage. And it's gonna be the Zoo versus Druid, which interestingly enough is actually not as bad as it used to be. Especially this type of Druid just has the ability to get on board super quick and compete with the Zoo easily.
For sure, Yogg Druid is. The stats show it almost close to 50-50 against Zoo.
Almost close.
Almost
like
close.
50-48?
Something like that, yeah. Something ridiculously close like that, yeah. So it's not unreasonable for Yogg Druid to get a win, but we do know that Izoro is not playing the traditional Yogg Druid. He's instead going with the Jackie Chan approach, which runs, some interesting cards. Wisps of the Old Gods, Soul of the Forest are in his deck, so...
It's like a Forbidden Ritual.
Yeah, I would say...
It's a not flexible Forbidden Ritual.
Yeah, I would say, the Soul of the Forest is a downside to include in his deck, but the Wisps, maybe it's an upside. They're pretty strong in the matchup in general. Like, one of the ways you lose the Zoo Mirror, right, is having Forbidden Ritual come out.
That's an interesting line of play. So Dr. Hippie is going to opt to play Flame Imp alongside the Possessed Villager on turn 2, and then try to coin out the Defensive Argus, or coin out Forbidden Ritual into Defensive Argus, pick one. That play usually lines up well, but in this case, the 2-1s just contest the Flame Imp way too easily. And
he got a little bit punished here by going so slow on the board. The Power of the Wild was really strong against him. But
I guess play Coin Forbidden Ritual never gets swiped, and it clears up the board most of the time, and then you can get the initiative back on your side.
Sure.
Is that something you want to do here?
No, I don't think so. But it's an option.
That's what I'm thinking about, because otherwise the possibility of swipe coming down later on when you try to go for that Forbidden Ritual is just so painful.
Yeah, the swipe is painful, but at the same time you don't really gain too much initiative going for it. So I'm more a fan of sticking with the already tried and true line of what you plan for.
They do trade anyway into it. They will end up trading their minions into your turn 2 play. Oh man, Fandral.
Here is Izoro. I'd really like maybe play the Living Roots to kill the Flame Imp and maybe just leave up a 2-1 on the board, or also just making 2 1-1s isn't terrible, and then taking the trade. I think actually 2 1-1s is more powerful than a 2-1.
Than a 2-1, exactly. Yeah. So you trade away the 2-1 and then you play 2 1-1s and pop the Possessed Villager and then
go face.
Push 2 damage to the Warlock's face and force him to have an answer to your board, which Forbidden Ritual kind of is. The issue is, like, it's really scary to play this into swipe, or at least the swipe turn, or even Wrath for cycle plus hero power on 4 is one of those things that Izoro can clean up the 1/1s with.
Yeah, I think he's just really evaluating here what is better. Is it 2-1 better or is 2-1-1s better? And we'll see if he comes to the same conclusion that we came to, and it looks like he did, yeah.
Values the 2 bodies instead of just...
It's kind of interesting.
The 1/1. I think it also makes a lot of sense. I mean, you saw the DrHippi play a 3-2 into your 2-1, so at that point, you've extracted a ton of value out of it, and the 1/1s he can't deal with. You established that. So Peddler, Imp Gang Boss was also one of those.
That's what you want to be seeing right now. So
liking that.
I think 100% we see Imp Gang Boss come down. We see the 2-1 get traded into. And currently with Izoro's hand, he's got like 2 clear-cut options. Maybe picks up something else. Nope. He's either got the Feral Rage, kill the Imp Gang Boss, deny the value, or he's got the YOLO, the Fandral.
Oh, wow.
Hope my opponent doesn't have Direwolf Alpha plus Abusive or Argus plus Abusive.
Plus Abusive. In this exact case, DrHippi is in a great trade he's getting here. I think he's just super happy. This is one of the few fringe cases where suddenly the disaster beginning just salvages itself perfectly.
And we see him go here, the Abusive Coin, Defender of Argus, trade up with the Fandral, puts himself in a great spot. And yeah, he was really close to starting to lose the board here, but he's able to come back with this play. And I think he's overall pretty favored from this point forward.
Well, exactly. We'll see what Izoro picks up. That Nourish could also play tricks on DrHippi, assuming if the ramp hits and the Oxron comes down early. Like if Izoro just wants to go crazy.
Do you go ramp here or do you go cards? Because
cards are more likely to work. But
yeah, I think cards are generally speaking the more common option, but it isn't crazy to go ramp.
Wait, what about Soul the Forest plus double trade into the 3-2? Then suddenly you have 2/2/2s to contest this board a little bit. You can curve into turn 6. You ever find anything off of Nourish you like? Never on 6, right? Almost never.
Innervate Wrath sometimes.
Yeah, it would have to be like a 2-card combination to be worth it. Don't touch those 1/1s. Maybe Soul the Forest works. Just don't touch anything.
No, you got to get them traded in to reduce the value of Imp Gang Boss. I guess you don't care about the value of Imp Gang Boss.
You have swipe. I don't think you care about the value of Imp Gang Boss.
You signal swipe then if you don't care about the value of Imp Gang Boss.
All right. I guess. Forbidden Ritual is appealing, but I think you want to be tapping and keeping the refill option open.
Sea Giant. That's a big boy.
It's a pretty big card. It's also one that Druid doesn't deal with well besides a Mulch. Well,
oftentimes it's pretty hard for Zoo to get out a Sea Giant against Druid. They're pretty good at cleaning up the board a lot of times.
Nowadays, yeah.
Yeah.
Especially Yogg Druid with
so much removal. But
all 1/1s.
Sometimes they get their Violet Teacher plays going on.
GG.
And then, like Druid makes all these 1/1 tokens, and then Zoo's just like, oh, okay, Sea Giant.
Yeah, I'll just play Sea Giant here, thank you.
For 0 mana.
Yeah, so Izoro's got the option of going for the the full kill on the Imp Gang Boss. That's really appealing when you're looking at like Wrath plus kill, but he also might want to... I don't think cycling the Wrath is worth too much here. Like when I look at this hand size and the options he's got, it just doesn't seem like something I want to be doing.
Yeah, so we see him... That's why he probably goes for Wrath for 3 here, and he's kind of just setting up the swipe for future turns and playing right into DrHippi's hand here, as DrHippi has the Sea Giant that he can now play because Zoro chose to develop instead of going for the swipe.
Yeah, and suddenly the board might come back to DrHippi. I mean, the Doom Guard is also a really good follow-up to this because everything gets cleaned up and suddenly you do come down with another threat. And you can always refill prior to that with Forbidden Ritual, so why not? And then you just get the Doom Guard on top of that on the following turn.
Seems like a really good Sea Giant power overwhelming turn.
Yeah, agree with that. Yeah. I think DrHippi is going to seize that. And yeah, it's one of those things where suddenly the dream beginning from Izoro ends up falling a little short once Zoo gets the Abusive Sergeant trade up.
Yeah, that Abusive Sergeant, man. Abusive Sergeant's just such a... If Abusive Sergeant didn't exist, Zoo wouldn't be nearly as powerful as it is. That's one of the cards that really pulls everything together for Zoo.
Yeah, you'd have to play a 6-0 Zoo with Lance Carry and Young Priestess. Which nobody wants to do besides 6-0, so...
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah, looks like Feral Rage Swipe actually cleans up most of this. You do take 8 in the process, and that feels bad. But
yeah, it's interesting that DrHippi traded the 2-3 instead of trading both 1/1s into the 2-2 to kind of play around Swipe a little bit. As you know, like, swiping the Giant is one of the ways that it dies. Or, like half dies. Swipe plus,
I mean, if you see Swipe, you're happy, because then Forbidden Ritual has a refill, and then good luck dealing with 7 1/1s on the board with your first swipe out of the way.
Ooh. Now,
suddenly,
is it Argus Forbidden Ritual?
Yeah, I don't know.
Or is it Doomguard? I kind of favor Argus Forbidden Ritual.
Agree with you. I think just having the extra 2/3 with a 2/2 right now that swings for a bit more, plus the whole fact that swipe alone does not deal with everything because they have to swing into it again with the hero power, being that the Argent Squire gets buffed a little bit. That's also more damage output. You don't even have to tap.
Okay. Tap Knife Juggler Forbidden Ritual is pretty good too. I don't mind that one.
That's perfectly good too. I mean, you don't have to play it because you can always fill up the board with just Forbidden, but
I think face damage.
I think Knife Juggler is good here. Knife Juggler is really
like
solid.
I think it's a 2/2 out there.
Swipe me, please. Just try.
And you've already seen one swipe.
Yeah, I like it. Either way, swipe screws you, right? Because you end up losing the board. The only issue is you can't get like another refill in the back of this one, which maybe feels weak, but I think it's perfectly acceptable. And look at that. Like, Soul of the Forest right now, a little bit dead in Izoro's hand. Could also draw into Wisp with the Old God, which is horrible in this spot. All right, picks up. Oh, swipe would be sick with the Innervate. And he picks up no swipe.
No swipe.
Wild Growth for Yogg.
Yeah, I think you do the Wild Growth for the Yogg.
He did
well,
not.
you already have Innervate for Yogg, actually.
Yeah.
So you could just...
But you play Innervate afterwards, right? You just play, like, Raven Idol.
What is he Raven Idling for?
Just another Raven Idol. Play more spells, get a bigger Yogg. You can do it next turn anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Well, DrHippi didn't set up lethal because he held back the Knife Juggler here, so he's looking for a top deck to close out this game.
Probably won't. Do you dig for it? Do you just play your hand? Because I feel like...
I don't think you want to... You know your opponent's out is Yogg, right?
Yeah.
So you don't want to overcommit into Yogg, really.
I mean, I'm okay with just playing, like, Juggler, Defender, just push, and then Doomguard can probably close the game afterwards.
Yeah, like tap first, see if you can find lethal, and then maybe play Juggler, Defender.
Yeah.
But yeah, if he'd played Knife Juggler the previous turn, he would just win here.
I really liked the Juggler last turn. It felt so solid. I mean, he does have the Defensive Argus, so...
Tap last?
Actually, yeah, Possessed Villager, like the fact that his board is so full.
And maybe he's not tapping, because he feels like he's just going to discard it with Knife Juggler anyway. I mean, discard it with Doomguard.
But there was an out for lethal in the PO there. I'm pretty sure.
He would have 9 damage out of hand. He had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 damage on the field.
Yeah.
So 5 plus 9 is 14. Zoro was at how much up?
14.
14?
I think so, yeah.
What do you know? And here comes Yogg.
You kind of have to just try to go all in on the Yogg's run. It might work out. Like, sometimes you don't Power Blast yourself. He can attack, so he knows he's not dead.
He's checking to see what minions sticked around.
And we'll see at the very Yogg's run.
Great start.
Obliterated.
Yeah, he gets a coil. That's not too bad.
Yeah, unless...
Ooh. Yogg number 2. He's got some heal.
That's pretty good. Bolt could also be a disaster, but sometimes not.
He really needs to not damage himself because he's just outside of range of Doomguard.
You have got to be kidding me. What?
Okay.
That is unbelievable.
Oh, missed all the minions. He's overdrawing a little bit, isn't he?
I have no clue.
He's at max hand size now, so any more draws pretty bad.
I don't pay attention to this. So Lethal's there, right?
Is he dead?
He's dead.
He's dead.
He's dead.
He was really close to surviving.
He was really close to not dead.
Yeah.
I would try to tilt the opponent here, but DrHippi is a more honorable opponent than I am, and just going to seal out the game with the Doomguard to face. So Izoro came pretty close to making that Yogg's run work, but not quite. Honestly, if that hadn't been Hand of Protection there, the 2/2 died automatically, and suddenly he wasn't dead anymore.
Yeah. There's definitely possibilities for that Yogg to save him, but it just wasn't quite able to save him, and that would have really punished DrHippi for not setting up his lethal.
Yeah, but it's one of those situations where, sometimes you don't get punished. Your opponent sometimes doesn't get punished when they play
Sometimes there's no justice in Hearthstone.
Sometimes there's none. But sometimes there is. We'll see in the next few matches. I'm still really, the Rogue getting the win from Izoro really bears bad news for DrHippi.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be tough for him to get this Freeze Mage win still. So next up, the series tied, though, 2-2, right?
Yeah, it's 2-2. I mean, the Druid versus Freeze Mage is an interesting one. Usually slightly Druid favored nowadays.
Slightly Druid favored,
not too much, but slightly. Just enough that Yogg flares and you win. Sometimes that doesn't happen, but, it's one of those fringe cases.
The more thing that makes it favored is the fact that Feral Rage is a card now, that all the Druids are running.
Yep.
So the ability to gain 8 armor is pretty huge. They oftentimes run Savage Roar as well. I feel like, though, Izoro's Druid list is a little less favored than the standard versions because...
Why is that?
He's, instead of running Ancient of War, runs Wisps of the Old Gods, and Freeze Mage has got no problem clearing Wisps of the Old Gods.
It's actually pretty happy that you give it something to do,
yeah.
Given that very often they'll just find no good room for it.
Whereas Freeze Mage is very bad at killing Ancient of War. Ancient of War sticks around forever. They got to freeze it pretty much every turn, otherwise they're taking 5 a turn. So.
Yeah, it's kind of like a Ragnaros in a way, because you need polymorphs to answer them effectively, but you really can't find room for polymorphs nowadays in Freeze Mage with no scientists cycling the deck for you, so you can't really tech the deck against it. That being said, it will be a Druid Mirror match, and DrHippi is going to be on the play, and Izoro is going to be on the coin. I mean, both players start with Innervate, Violet Teacher, so they both feel pretty happy about their hand, except the one with the coin a little bit happier. Oh my goodness. Wow. Change of plans. Power of the Wild top deck. GG.
Do you go for that, really?
I mean, if you draw the Power of the Wild on the back of Innervate, Violet, Innervate, Power of the Wild.
Oh, man, now he's picked up the Mire Keeper, so he may be tempted to go with Mire Keeper instead, but I think you just go for turn 1 Violet Teacher here. Druid has really hard time dealing with turn 1 Violet Teacher.
It never kills Violet Teacher on turn 1. I mean, that felt like the perfect timing.
Yeah.
You literally never get it removed. What would they do to kill it?
They would have to have
Living
an Innervate play, or
I mean, that never happens.
So it's very difficult for them to kill it. And then he would have been able to Wrath here and kill Hippie's Violet Teacher, so... But Hippie's the first one with a Violet Teacher somehow. And I think he's in an advantageous position now.
Yeah, I mean, there's really, like, Izoro has a lot of lines of play that he can make here, a ton of them. There's really a lot of lines of play he can make, and, like, they're all kind of tied between trying to get the Fandral value later on, so you hold on to your Innervate, but then you fall behind on board, you hope you get Swipe. You can try to max ramp by going for the Nourish, which also lets you play your 4-drops on curve.
There's a little bit of Nourish.
You know, but what I mean is, like, playing this
kind
of evens out.
I like the Mire Keeper. It's okay. I think that's one of the decent lines of play you can make here for sure.
Yeah, but now the second Violet Teacher could come out for DrHippi, which would give him a token, also kill the 3 through the Violet Teacher, which suddenly makes Izoro non-Innervate plays really awkward.
There's a lot of spells you could top deck as you're playing, a spell-based Druid deck. So I totally do not hate the Innervate Violet Teacher play. I don't think you Innervate Mire Keeper here because you're going to have 4 mana to play the Mire Keeper anyway, and 4 mana to play, any of your spells that you top deck out of your entire deck because
Agreed.
The highest cost of the spells is, like, for most of them anyway, is 4, right?
The only thing you're getting by playing Mire Keeper is the possibility of a Nourish follow-up, but that's like 2 cards in your deck that otherwise don't get played, and that's really minor compared to the benefit of getting 1/1s every single time against Druid.
Yeah, just getting that bigger minion out there I think is more impactful, and DrHippi agrees. I like
Power of the Wild. Just think about Power of the Wild here. Power of the Wild. But Fandral with the Living Roots is going to give Izoro tokens plus the ability to kill one of the Violet Teachers if he wants to. I would be tempted to play that over...
Well, I like Violet Teacher with the tokens more than Fandral with the tokens, just because Fandral has more flexibility with more cards. And Violet Teacher, you get the same exact effect as you would with Fandral, right?
Sure. But you're forcing...
You get 2 1/1s and a 3/5 on the field, and you get to save Fandral for more impactful things like Fandral Wrath.
Even Wrath, even Wrath. I guess that's fine, too. I mean, you are getting, like, 2 tokens in the end and killing the Violet Teacher. It's one of the, like, the weird spots where, like, Swipe really messes you up, and suddenly that play gets, like, heavily punished, but...
Well, I mean, both plays put the exact same amount of stats in the field. They both lose to Swipe.
The only issue is that I think Violet Teacher generates more tokens later on. After the swipe's been played. Yeah,
it's such an awkward game.
Yeah, it's really been awkward for both players. They had an okay hand. The issue is when both of them mirror each other, no one gets an advantage.
Well, one player hits the swipe and wins
the other
game.
Doesn't. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's and DrHippi is the one that falls short on the spell count here. Izoro on the following turn, if his Violet Teacher sticks around, is going to be able to take advantage of the situation. But DrHippi is going to forgo developing the minion because most likely just because he has the Ezreal to follow up anyway, and just make sure he removes that Violet Teacher, which works out very well for him. Otherwise, this Wrath would have totally punished him.
Yeah, and right now the Fandral is not quite enabled this turn, but there's really no way to kill it unless you pick up Feral Rage off the top. For DrHippi, there's very few cards that help him kill this.
This is not. Oh the Feral Rage top deck!
Unbelievable! The card of the century for DrHippi here. Without this, the game was.
It was just done.
100% of the time.
You would have been able to play Nourish and draw 3 cards plus gain 2 mana.
GG.
And then follow up with dealing 3 damage and gaining 8 life and
that
Wrath
is
for 4 and drawing a card. Like, it would have been crazy. So I like the play from Izoro of taking the risk against it. It's only punished by Feral Rage, basically, or a 2-card combo.
Or let's say Wrath plus Living Roots, but it's very uncommon. So that play was absolutely
and he's still ahead, though, at the end of it. That's the other great part about that play is even if your opponent has the perfect answer, they surrender all the tempo back to you. So that's why I really like the play there by Izoro. It's like almost no risk.
Yeah, no, DrHippi does pick up a decent tempo play with the Myra Keeper responding a 2-2 and also able to kill off one of the 1-1s. The ramp at this point doesn't matter too much since he's curving into Ancient of War on 7 anyway, or even just a DrDrake if he feels like that's ever necessary. Which,
sure. Ancient of War is one of the most powerful minions in the Druid Mirror.
Absolutely.
By like a huge margin.
Eat up a mulch, give me another one of those.
That's the only counterplay to it, right, is the one of mulch. If they don't have that one of mulch and they have to go through that 5-10 the hard way, you're usually outvaluing them and winning the game.
So one interesting thing, too, about the matchup, we spoke about the Wisp of the Old Gods not being too impactful or too good, but it's one of those cases where right now DrHippi's hand is exceptionally bad against it, and all it takes is like a Savage Roar on the back of it or Power of the Wild to buff them all up, and suddenly Wisp of the Old Gods just carries the game.
Definitely possible, and
it's kind of amusing.
Izoro's hand is kind of fizzled out of steam. Now he has all of the spells and none of the minions, so nothing really to go with it. So I think you may have to just Wrath for 1 here, cycle to try and find some action going on.
I think so too. I mean, you could always try to make the Myra Keeper work, but in the end you still want to end up Wrathing unless you commit to Fell Rage, which is really awkward. You could go for Call the Wild, but again, I don't like that as much as cycling.
Yeah, he's going to Wrath for 3, push the face damage, going the full tempo route.
Yeah, full Power of the Wild, Savage Roar win.
Yeah, I guess that's what he's going for. The little minions he has, he's trying to Power of the Wild and roar them.
So here we see a case where you might choose the DrDrake just because it deals 3 to the Myra Keeper. But I still like Ancient of War.
Yeah, I like Ancient of War a lot. Well, the longer you wait on it, the more likely there's going to be the mulch to get rid of it.
Think about it. If you want to play around Savage Roar, the argument for like the Living Roots play is a bit better because you clean up more of the board. The issue is like Wisp of the Old God just tears you apart because then you do have to find the swipe on the back of the DrDrake draw. So it's more likely you find swipe by the turn where they play, say, Wisp of the Old Gods here. And if you clean up the board more, you're less vulnerable to Savage Roar for the Living Roots play.
Is the 5-10 really vulnerable to Savage Roar, though? Clears their whole board.
It's not as vulnerable as...
Clears their whole board, takes their turn. Yeah. Seems good.
Yeah. They have to roar, literally. And
oh yeah, we do see Izoro end up going for the roar here, but you know, I don't think DrHippi's unhappy about this.
I mean, you see Fell Rage come out as well with the 3-1, so he does keep the 3-3 alive at the end of the day.
Still, that's your opponent's entire turn, and they lost, you know, about half their board, I guess. And they take so much damage out of their hand, and they take 5 damage to face. I think that's a win.
And you still get your DrDrake play on this turn.
Sure, yeah.
Ramp to Yogg.
Now you're ahead on board. Now you're an DrDrake ahead on board. So, yeah, I think the sequence worked out quite nicely for DrHippi. He picks up Cenarius for the following turn. That seems pretty good.
Izoro needs the Wisp of the Old Gods to come out just about right now with Power of the Wild on curve to get a bunch of 2-2s, dodge the swipe on the back of their DrDrake, and maybe then suddenly the game is his, but it's a lot of ifs. It's a lot of ifs and a lot of dodging to do with the Nourish as well. 3 more card draws for DrHippi to pick up.
Ooh.
Okay, things might have just gone wrong.
Playing Cenarius before your opponent plays Cenarius seems pretty sweet. Yeah. So Izoro's not in a terrible spot. He's not in a great spot still. He's still down, you know, an Azure Drake, basically. They got mirrored boards, except DrHippi's got an Azure Drake, but Izoro's, you know, has the initiative lead because he's taking his turn before
he can he can dictate where the trades go because he gets to quote unquote attack charge with his minions because they were played first, but in effect, like, if he doesn't pick up a Drake of his own or some kind of extra spell to double swipe,
you Raven Idol into swipe,
and double swipe the board, and then suddenly you're super far ahead.
That would be insane.
That would be nuts, but it's also not that unlikely. I mean, it's one of those cases. Oh my goodness, do you do it?
The Wisps of the Old Gods,
just force.
Force? Yeah, Force Power of the Wild's not crazy.
Yeah. It does get, I mean, you still trade with the treants on the board. You keep one of them alive, and then you get three
You could take
threes.
Both of the trades, then play Wisps of the Old Gods, and then Power of the Wild.
I'll take that. That's also not too bad. Again, you have to dodge swipe.
Yeah.
So Izoro's just thinking, do I think I'm going to dodge swipe here? What are the odds? Come on.
He's also got to be concerned about Yogg. DrHippi's had 1 card in the left side of his hand since the mulligan, basically.
Yeah.
You can kind of expect that that's going to be Yogg.
It's not Innervate. It's not Wild Growth. It's certainly not Wild Growth. You've seen already the Innervates being played. So at this point, it's basically just a big dude. Either Yogg or Yogg. Like, no other alternative.
So it looks like we're seeing the swipe plus the Force Nature play. He's just removing the Drake, getting rid of that spell power, cleaning up as much damage as possible, and then Getting that 5-drop worth of stats out there with the Power of the Wild in his hand to buff it up after
I mean, DrHippi knows for a fact there's 2 Wisps with the old gods in that deck. You have to be afraid of the +2/+2, +2/+3.
+3/+3, yeah.
On all those guys, so if you let them live, you might die.
That may be what incentivizes him to play Yogg here.
Yeah, I actually wouldn't even be surprised if that came out.
Sure.
One of the things, though, is like Emperor plus Savage War does let you clear off 2 minions. You kill the Treant and the Scenarios with your own. So you're still ahead on board. You get 4-mana Nourish, which lets you streak into a little bit more flexible removal.
I think if he knew Izoro's hand was as weak as it is, he would go with Emperor Roar. But
Agreed.
It's really hard to be like, yeah, my opponent's got Power of the Wild Growth, and can't really do anything with their turn.
Yeah,
so
if they have Wisp of the Old Gods plus Power of the Wild, you're in deep trouble.
And we see him go here with the Yogg. Doesn't attack with the
Wait,
Scenarios.
he actually won. He either won or lost or something bad happened. He can't end turn. Someone's dead.
Someone's dead.
Someone's dead, dude.
Really?
Someone's
They're at
dead.
20 and 25. I don't think someone's dead. I think it's a
someone
spectator.
is dead.
No one's dead.
Someone's dead, dude.
It's already done.
It's glitched?
Yeah.
What the hell?
It just wasn't green because he could still attack.
He could still play cards. You know what?
Yeah.
Ignore me, man. I'm worthless. So I guess at this point, Wild Growth
That was a really good Yogg, by the way.
Yeah. It's like, let's revert this board state. All right, I'm taking those Treants. You lose the Scenarios. Let's go back.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really tricky for Izoro. He does want to pick up his own Yogg at this stage. Like, it's kind of the winning card. Wisp of the Old Gods, unfortunately, not quite enough.
Yep.
Emperor is kind of cute.
Emperor's not bad. We see him go for the draw there. He's definitely like in a situation where Yogg's is out, so we see him digging for Yogg.
Yeah, and at this point, it's pretty much Yogg or bust. And DrHippi does have the Savage Roar to make this damage total a little bit higher. It's unfortunately not quite enough. Like at 17, you need to find a little bit more. So
Nourish is great at finding more damage, but he may just opt to go with the Wrath for 3, trade in the 2/2, and then play the Emperor Thorson out there. Just get that max pressure on the board, try and set up lethal for the following turn. And
the Yogg's out of the way, so you have to play honest for the rest of the game, basically.
Sure, yeah, just be as aggressive as possible. Your opponent can't Yogg your overdevelopment, so overdevelop.
Yeah, do all you can at this point. Izoro might be forced to mulch to just mitigate some damage at some point. Probably just now, actually.
Oh yeah, probably just now.
It's just one of those
Unless
cases
he picks up Yogg.
where,
Oh, that seems like the play plus Power of the Wild. Play every card in your hand.
You play every card in your hand. Just vomit everything, kill the Emperor Thorson, or, yeah, it's just hope.
Charger?
I mean, there's no swipe
charge
possible unless a DrHippi gets picked up. So suddenly this board is actually pretty tough to take care of.
Yeah.
And with the backup possible top deck, Wisp of the Old Gods #2, this is really scary for DrHippi. And he's looking at, what, a total of 7. He's got 14 damage at most.
14 damage
15
currently
with hero
on
power.
the board. We've seen the Roar used already by Izoro, though, so...
Honestly, there's a lot of draws that win the game, right? If you Nourish into Swipe, like, do you win? Nourish into Swipe lets you fill up your entire curve and win, I think. Nah, you're going to be a little bit off.
Yeah, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 plus Swipe.
4.
14.
Yeah, so Swipe would be the lethal.
Swipe would be lethal here. Unable to find the Swipe, though, so DrHippi doesn't have a lethal. He does have to kind of clear here, I guess.
I mean, you could always go for Azure Dragon to develop stuff. Like, the question is, like, how many Wisps do you let live, right? Because if they get 5 of them to live, you're dead. If they pick up the second Wisp of the Old Gods.
You still want to be, like, setting up lethal, right? So...
Yeah.
What is the best way for you to set up lethal while maximizing your odds of living? And is he just Savage Roaring all face?
I think there's a good argument for that, given the fact that you've got the Drake plus Living Roots for 3 damage plus hero power. So honestly, you're locking down this game next turn, unless a disaster occurs. Because the guy's down to 3. There's no way he dodges the lethal.
I like it. Sets up lethal here.
Wisp of the Old
Izoro
Gods
has, you know, one top deck to end out the game and kill DrHippi, and that's not it. But
he's going to try.
He's going to try.
It's not there.
But DrHippi setting up lethal here is going to allow him to win the game. If he had went for trades instead, and then Izoro picks up this, Izoro might be able to outvalue him. So I really like DrHippi's line of play here of just setting up the lethal, closing the game out.
How much damage does he have on board right now? He's looking at... I'm just trying to calculate the amount of damage he's got. Because is there a world in which suddenly, like, the opponent doesn't play minions, and you can't play Yogg nor... Like, if you can't play Yogg, then suddenly that's the only out you've got, and you're dead to any play if your board is full.
Well,
Izoro's board is full.
He's dead.
Yeah, in this case it doesn't matter. But I'm trying to figure out. I'm trying to figure out if maybe he shouldn't have traded one of the Wisps before casting Soul of the Forest, just to make sure his board has one open slot.
Okay.
At the top.
I can see that.
It's minor, but it's one of those cases where suddenly Yogg doesn't win or salvage the game. Doesn't matter.
Sure.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
GG.
GG, for
well
sure.
Well played.
Yeah.
DrHippi is going to take this. That was
So
a really janky opener from both players. Honestly, the whole Violet Teacher trade.
Yeah, that got really awkward. Neither player had the spell for the ultimate punish. If either player had, a Wrath one turn earlier or a Swipe one turn earlier when there's two Violet Teachers looking at each other, then they would just win the game. Or either player hits Power of the Wild, they win the game.
At any point. It was the old gods 2 turns earlier, suddenly disaster for DrHippi. One interesting thing, though, is that DrHippi is down to his worst possible deck.
Yeah, the Freeze Mage left. So it's got to win either against the Shaman from Izoro or the Druid from Izoro. So
there's not a lot of room for mistakes when you're playing the Shaman in this matchup. But when you're playing Druid, I feel like that's the edge that the Druid is supposed to have over Freeze Mage. Is one that you can surrender by being too defensive sometimes. Like, if you don't commit enough, or if you try to play your spells not enough to cycle, and you try to ramp up too early and maybe not get the damage output. If you don't draw cards off of Nourish, instead you try to ramp into...
Oh, yeah. You're always supposed to draw cards off Nourish with the Yogg Druid, 100% of the time.
One of those things with the matchup, if it's not Shaman, which in this case it is...
Yeah, it's definitely closer for Freeze Mage to be able to beat the Druid. That's why we see that Izoro queuing up with the Shaman here. He wanted to get his win with the Druid against DrHippi's other decks, which is why he kept queuing up the Druid. And now that DrHippi's left with only Freeze Mage, now he's queuing up the Shaman and just taking his best possible matchup. And he's got an okay hand, not a spectacular hand. He's missing his turn 2 play.
Yeah, I was going to say, though, DrHippi, he started with the Emperor Thorson starting hand. So where that usually is an exceptional card to have just in general, in this specific matchup, if you ever get to turn 6, you're lucky to be there. And Emperor Thorson is usually not going to be the way you can win the game. But in this spot, I mean, this is great for DrHippi.
Yeah, he's able to get the coin Frostbolt out there and remove all the pressure. And
yeah.
Doomsayer this turn does not seem bad.
I think it's actually 100%. You know there's going to be a 3-drop if the 2 was skipped. The odds are really good that your opponent is going to have something to play on 3.
I wouldn't say it's 100%.
It's like, something like 75.
Well, the thing is, if your opponent's not playing a 3-drop, then it just guarantees basically that they're unoverloaded for Flame Wreath Faceless and stuff like that.
Or even Think from Below on 4 after just hitting the Hero Power button on turn 3.
I wouldn't say it's 100% correct to Doomsayer here, but I think it's a very solid play and it's very tempting.
I think if the Flame Wreath Faceless hits, if you've got the Acolyte of Pain set up, then your Fireball also meshes well with it to clean up that 7-7, and suddenly they're back to square one. Your Blizzard hits on curve, where they'll only have a 3-drop on turn 5, and suddenly maybe you stabilize into your bigger removal later on.
That is a fair point. With the Fireball in hand, being able to answer the
Why didn't he hit that Hero Bar button?
Okay.
What the hell?
He is missing the discount on the
Doesn't care? Doesn't need it? What is it? What is that? Is a statement?
It's just a mistake. I guess he doesn't play Shaman very often in this matchup. He realizes it now.
Oh, man. This could be a really big deal.
It could be a very big deal indeed.
I really hope it doesn't come down to that being a huge component of the loss.
Yeah, maybe Izoro a little bit tilted. He has been having the rough of it with his Druid deck, picking up a few losses in the recent games and wipes his eyes here, trying to get focus back in.
Yeah. Does that help?
I guess. I don't know. Now if Feral Spirits comes down, you can't follow it up with Things from Below.
Yeah,
that's pretty impactful.
That's exactly it. Like, you have to keep streaking those 3-drops back to back just because you've negated the possibility to Think from Below.
Yeah, if he had totemed there, you get Things from Below after this turn when he has 4 mana, but unable to do it now, so...
Let's see what happens here. DrHippi gets a good opportunity to play one of the secrets with Novice Engineer. The Blizzard can streak into more AoE later on, so card draw is important, but...
He's going to continue cycling card draw here, get that Loot Hoarder down, it looks like.
I don't dislike that, just because, I mean, the moment you get the Blizzard to streak into another Blizzard, that buys you time. And if you have, like, say, 8 mana or 9 mana, suddenly, like, you can usually stabilize. But the secrets are so important to get out.
Yeah.
Like, on those quote-unquote safe turns.
Sure. I think it's really tough to determine whether Barrier or Loot Hoarder is better here.
Yeah, it's really like a toss-up, but...
Yeah, my first instinct was Barrier. Didn't even really think about the Loot Hoarder until he picked it up.
And just like that, I mean, there's still going to be a curve play from Izoro, but at any point he wants to play the Thing from Below, it's always going to be 1 mana more expensive than it needs to be. And hopefully for him, it doesn't come back to bite him too hard.
It's probably not going to be too big of a deal. If anything, this was the turn where it was the biggest deal because he could have gotten it out of this turn, and now he just didn't have the option to get it out this turn.
All right.
So it's kind of finished, being punished for that little mistake, but...
DrHippi does find a Nova, which isn't too bad. I mean, you can play the second secret. We've talked about that a lot. It kind of matters. The issue is you do want to get the card draw in, and if you try to draw on turn 7, it's suddenly you can't play your Blizzard, and everything's awkward. So I think Loot Hoarder plus Ice Block might be okay this time around, or even Novice Engineer. I prefer the Hoarder.
Yeah.
There's no Bloodlust, right? So you could
I don't hate Blizzard.
So you just stall a bit longer to get the draw with Nova double draw on 7?
I think you just set up to like ping your opponent's minions if he continues to, or if he like goes face. It seems like Face Shaman doesn't have too many minions, so at some point they start running out of minions, and with 4 minions already on the board for Izoro, that's when they start kind of fizzling out of minions. So just setting up to be able to ping pressure off and be able to play out your card draw the following turns.
Interestingly, though, Izoro does find like some kind of awkward play with Thing from Below eventually, if everything kind of keeps going. Yeah. I see a world where the overload from Feral Spirit ends up like leaving him with not enough mana to play Thing from Below right afterwards.
I'll probably be fine.
Yeah, it's Sangro Shaman against Freeze Mage. Let's not kid ourselves.
I think the Freeze Mage is in a great spot to be able to take this game, and now he's got 2 things from below, which is kind of funny, but...
Let's play one of them, though. Like, this is pretty much the turn where he was actually able to play this.
Yeah, it's looking great for him, though, with the Rockbiter. So, although Hippie's been stabilizing quite nicely, Hippie's starting to run out of resources, and Izoro having that Rockbiter is just absolutely huge.
Give him the card draw. So you set up the Flame Strike protection. That way your 5/5 does not die to Flame Strike plus the play. Double Nova is really important here for DrHippi. That buys him a ton of time with the Arcane Intellect in hand.
Well,
that is a lot.
Some amount of time for sure. Like, Izoro's still 2 turns away from lethal potentially. He picks up any burn spell, right? And then he's got the Rockbiter plus the Doomhammer for 10, and then he's got the Doomhammer itself for another 4. Now he's looking at just 4 damage, so a Spell Power Lightning Bolt, a second Rockbiter, or a Lava Burst is going to be, the ability for him to pop the block. So,
but that's the thing, you pop the block. One of the problems now is that DrHippi's drawn so much, there's a chance he just sets you at 15 and 1-2 punches you.
Sure, yeah.
It's kind of a scary prospect if you're Izoro. It's definitely possible. It's in the range of plays that could come up.
Yeah, there's no reason here for Izoro to actually commit any more minions to the board. The question he's thinking and asking himself right now is if he uses the Rockbiter or not. He chooses to hold it back.
I might have played it here because if I get frozen back to back to back to back, then suddenly my damage never comes together and I'm relying on double Lava Burst to ever do anything.
That was my thought as well. I also really don't like playing Feral Spirits here and filling up the board.
Okay.
You lose the ability to play Finley, which is really huge because that's one of your ways to get extra damage, actually.
And now DrHippi knows full well that if I just Nova this board, then I'm at least buying an extra turn where nothing else comes up that I don't control. But I do leave the
limits chargers for coming out to deal extra damage as well.
Do you ever just go Frost Nova into... the issue with that is that the spell damage totem's there. I'm not sure how much that matters, but you might be tempted to freeze face if you go for the Nova. Just because the possibility of Rockbiter plus a spell. How much is that? Like 15. So you still get popped. On Lightning Bolt, I think, is where it matters. The only
yeah, Lightning Bolt is where the spell totem actually matters. That's the only card really. There's 2 copies of it in Izoro's deck.
You might Blizzard instead of Nova.
Yeah,
then.
That's why we see DrHippi here go for the Blizzard instead of the Nova, just to make sure that. Oh, he's also going with Frostbolt Ice Lance face, or just Frostbolt face, hold the Ice Lance to freeze again.
Yeah, and
keep
this is where the
frozen. And yeah, this is where Izoro's getting kind of punished.
Oh man.
Yeah, if he would have dunked the Rockbiter the previous turn,
would have gotten 6 extra damage, a little bit less.
He would still be 2 off of being able to pop him, with a Spell Power Lava Burst. So. Oh.
That's.
Without the Frostbolt to go with the Ice Lance, though, it's not good enough. But it's still insane for DrHippi. He's got the Flame Strike to clear the board. He can Alex himself back up after Izoro pops him this turn and proceed to win the game from there.
Yeah, just bringing your health back up after the burst comes in means that you're basically resetting with an 8/8, which, by the way, Shaman just doesn't have any good answers for unless they Stoneclaw Totem you to death.
Well, the most important thing about this whole sequence is Izoro's Doomhammer's gone when he pops the Ice Block here, which means his ability to deal damage to DrHippi is pretty much gone. And so I feel like DrHippi's going to be taking this game.
It's not over yet.
It's not over yet, but it's pretty close.
Yeah, I mean, that's an unbelievable win for Hippie. Not only is it match point, which is super important, but it's also one of the most uphill battles in the game alongside something like Rogue Freeze Mage. I am really shocked at the outcome. And he's going to leave his opponent at 4, which means Lightning Bolt is no longer a pop. There was the option of just going, for the Bolt plus Lava Burst, putting your opponent at 1.
Well, then you lose the Bolt. I like this play a little bit better. You got Abusive Sergeant Lightning Bolt for the second kill, and you had Spell Power Lightning Bolt for...
a semi-follow-up, basically. Yeah. Kind of a follow-up. Oh, hi. But that's useless.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy seeing Freeze Mage get the victory here. Usually it falls in favor of the Shaman, especially when Shaman has Doomhammer. Doomhammer is one of those key cards that if you have him, you're kind of in a great position to take the game. But Izoro had kind of a weak opening, and Hippie had a pretty strong opening. He had exactly what you want, and
the card draw lined
quite
up
nicely,
man. Yeah. That card draw lined up. The double secret, he found turns to play them without being, too punished for it with excessive aggression from the Shaman. So.
Yeah,
that's kind of a fringe scenario. Like, this never happens. This is one of really rare cases where this matchup goes this way.
I don't know. Hippie loves playing Freeze Mage, and I saw him win Freeze Mage against Face Shaman in the StarLadder qualifiers. Casted his game doing that, so he's been consistently beating Face Shaman with Freeze Mage throughout the StarLadder qualifiers. So some could say it's just kind of good luck, good fortune in a bad matchup, or maybe he's got it figured out.
Yeah, I think DrHippi is happy to get the win with this Freeze Mage at the very last moment. He probably feels like it wasn't looking good for that deck going forward, those last two from Izoro. But, it was a pretty long series, well-deserved. Must say one thing. I think Druid Mirror match was pretty interesting to watch.
Yeah, that was pretty funny to see. Yeah, that was a weird game, and yeah, congrats to DrHippi. He's going to be moving on to day 3
with Neyman, his teammates.
Yeah,
so
both of them.
Virtus Pro are getting 2 of their players in the top 4 of the event. Only 1 Chinese player, unfortunately, for China, but it's a good representation nonetheless. So congratulations to these 2 players. The others will be going back home, so Hoi and Izoro will be leaving. Now, it's kind of interesting because we've got our top 4 set up with Xiaoshuai, 6-0, Neyman, and DrHippi, which we'll be playing tomorrow for the final spot. It's going to be a single elimination bracket.
Double elimination. It's going to be the same thing as one of these groups.
Okay, so they're going to do double elimination again.
Yeah,
interesting, because last time it ended up being single elimination for the top 4.
Yeah, but this time they've switched it. It's going to be double elimination for the finals, and
sure, I mean that's even better. One of the cool things as well about the entire format so far for the entire event is we've kind of had the build-up starting from a very long time ago. All the way was best of 7s, which means that these players have not simply gone through the group stage this time around with best of 7. It's been a very long event.
Beyond
even just the live LAN finals, just all the way through.
Yeah, it started like 2 months ago. It started it started just before DreamHack Austin.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was. Wow, it was best of 7s then, and that was the qualifier to the qualifier, and then after that, you got to...
There was a time when N'Zoth Paladin was alive during the event. Like, it was actually something that people
N'Zoth
played.
Paladin was... I targeted N'Zoth Paladin with my lineup in the event, so...
Combo Priest.
Yeah, I played Combo Priest, so it's been
That's why he's not playing today.
Yeah, that's why I didn't make it. Yeah, I just had to bring Combo Priest. That was a poor decision.
But it's been a while back. All I'm saying is, like, it's been so long, and we've seen so many. I feel like the entire metagame of Old Gods kind of rainbowed all the way through the event, which has been crazy.
The players that played in StarLadder, all of them have had to adapt to the meta as they've made it from the qualifier to the qualifier to the qualifier to the actual event to here
to the LAN finals.
To the LAN finals of the event. So
now we're down to 4 players, which will be competing for first place for $25K. That's a pretty big amount of money. Just $50K pool, prize pool that is for the total of all the players.
They've already earned quite a chunk of money.
Just being here, top 8.
Just being here.
Yeah. So I know a lot of the players who dropped out were a little bit disgruntled. I know Stan Sivka he was so hyped to be here. It's kind of sad for him that he didn't make it through. He was really excited. Like, of all the players, I think he was the most excited visibly of all of them. So that was pretty insane.
We have now standing by DrHippi with the winner's interview. So let's see what he's got to say.
Yeah, Yaxron's pretty good. I mean, coming into it, I think a lot of people were really curious about why you choose to bring Freeze Mage. I think some people feel like Freeze Mage is not so good.
Yeah.
Why do you bring it?
Yeah, Freeze Mage not so good this meta, but how can I not bring Freeze Mage?
Okay, cool. I mean, you really stay loyal to it too, right? Because you practice it a lot. Well, specifically, it feels like a lot of people also put their faith in the Yogg Druid too, and that your opponent also had the Soul of the Forest and stuff. Did that catch you by surprise at all?
Yeah, pretty much. But I saw this deck before, so in Jackie Chan's streams.
What do you think about that version of the Yogg Druid deck?
I like more Six or Extra Druid.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a pretty good point too. Take a look at how the bracket's going to shape up. Because you advance to second place, you're going to be playing 6-0 tomorrow. How do you feel about your chances going against 6-0 in single elimination from tomorrow?
I think it's pretty much 50-50 for me. Yeah.
Do you feel like the information advantage the fact that you guys know each other's decks, do you think that helps you, or do you think that hurts you at all?
I think Sixo knows that I bring his match, so I think it no matter.
Okay, so I mean, Sixo knows a lot of what you guys play all the time, so I think it's pretty relevant. What do you think about Neyman's chances against his opponent?
Neyman favorite, something like 70-30 for Neyman.
Okay, cool. Well, I mean, how much do you guys get to practice with each other? She said that it doesn't seem like you guys get to prepare much, but what about at the event? Are you guys helping each other, talking to each other and stuff?
In the event, we helping each other, but we prepare.
You practice separately by yourself, right? Okay, cool. Last question is, Neyman also said that the finals will be you against him, just like the Europe Winter Championship. Do you feel like that's going to be the same thing, you versus Neyman? Who's going to win this time?
Not the same thing. I will win.
Oh, okay, I like it. This time he'll take revenge.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you so much, Dr. Hippie, for a few words. Congratulations on the win. We'll see you in day number 3.
Thank
For
you.
now, we're done with this interview, so let's go back to the casters and wrap up the day.